Welcome to today's edition of Drive Time with David and Dave. Often irreverent, sometimes informative, and occasionally brilliant, Morningstar's finest tackle the comedic questions of the day, which no one else even dares to ask. David Vallier and Dave Yarnes come to you each week from their studio in Fort Mill, South Carolina. Now, if you've missed a portion of today's broadcast or would like to recommend it to a friend, you can hear this program at any time on the Drive Time with David and Dave host page at talknetworkradio.com. Well, now here are David and Dave with today's show.
Hey, this is Drive Time with David and Dave. Extremely cool in that it's our first, well, it's, how do I want to say this? It's our first second half of ever having a live guest in our studio. Who do we have?
We've got the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff, with us.
In studio. Studio A.
He's already broken through a bunch of our furniture, tear down stuff. All of our supply of Yoo-Hoo that we keep in the refrigerator.
That's right. He's shown me all kinds of moves. Like, I could do all of them now. It's awesome.
So if you missed our first half, go back and see that because we don't want to recover that. But you had a couple of questions. So big wrestling fan.
Oh, huge. I mean, wrestling is practically half of my life.
Yeah, I wanted to get his, and I know he's going to call it an action figure, but it looked like the Nikita Koloff doll.
Yeah,
I wanted to get that thing. So it's
I'm like, dude, girls have dolls, guys have action figures.
That is so cool, though. But it was with Ivan. Is that right? It came in a set? The one that I was
there was individual. They're very rare. Like honestly, they were limited edition. I only did one. And then so I did a single and then a duel with Ivan. But guess what? Out right now, it just came out. Retromania video, my first video game. Well, officially my first video game. Retromania is now out for people to play and for me to win.
You can be a character in the Retromania?
I'm one of the characters in the Retromania video.
Oh man, I call him when we play.
Awesome.
I call him. You can be someone else, but
I don't. Who's all available in the game?
I don't know. Oh, the Road Warriors are on there.
Okay.
Who else is on there? Nick Aldis, who's one of the newer guys, NWA heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
The Blue Meanie. I mean,
oh my gosh, the Blue Meanie.
Yeah, there's some pretty cool. There's some pretty cool Coke Cabana. There's some pretty cool characters on there.
Awesome.
And hopefully I'll get my hand raised and win a world title.
That'd be great. Well, I think you'll be like the most popular character. I
hope so.
It would be. Yeah. So, I mean, incredible career as a professional athlete. I mean, and, much respect for the athleticism that I see in the ring. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I mean, just from what I know from, wrestling in high school and, afterwards, that stuff just wears you out. So,
well, the real stuff does.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? It's not real?
But it was physically, you get done, you'd be exhausted.
It was physically demanding, and people don't realize, there were numerous times, and David, you're a major fan of it, right? So there was I can't even count how many times I wrestled Ric Flair for an hour.
Right.
They called it a Broadway, or in technical terms, or a draw, but I wrestled for a 1 hour draw numerous times. Right. You want to talk about exhausting? Go wrestle for an hour, whether it's entertainment or not. Go do it for an hour,
physically demanding,
nonstop, right? And so you want to talk about physically demanding? It really was. Yep, I appreciate that.
Nikita Koloff was born. You were literally like minding your own business, doing something, and then bam, the next day you are the Russian Nightmare, professional wrestler Nikita Koloff on the stage, and then it quickly goes up to thousands and thousands. I think last episode we said like 30,000 people in a stadium. That's amazing. So that was it. It was this meteoric kind of rise.
Yeah, for real. One of the few like that. I think last year you mentioned Bill Goldberg, who kind of stepped in when I stepped away. I chose under my own terms to walk away, and Goldberg kind of stepped in. In fact, he was trained by a guy who kind of showed him my videos. Like if you look at some of his mannerisms and what he did in the ring, a lot of similarities there. Even the shaved head, but Yeah, I mean, it was. I like what the meteoric was the right word, because I stepped into that business with no professional training and no amateur background. A lot of respect for you guys, by the way, who wrestle in amateur wrestling. And within 13 months, I mean, I'm a world tag team champion, a world 6-man champion, and I'm wrestling Ric Flair for the world heavyweight title, all in 13 months. Yeah,
that's incredible. So Ric Flair was your nemesis for years.
He was one. Magnum TA.
Oh yeah, Magnum
the best of 7 series for the U.S. title is probably the most mentioned from the fans of all the matches I had.
Now, I want to ask Dave, because he's nodding over here.
Okay, I know.
Did you root against our man Nikita back in the?
The funny thing was, I was always for the bad guy. So
I
ever
can
since I was a kid, I was always for the bad guy. So
I like it.
I love the Four Horsemen when they were bad. I loved everything that was. I was an NWO fan. Those were my things.
Oh, nice. And as a kid, you would go. Not only would you collect the memorabilia, watch the shows, you would go to.
I would go to the live events. I mean, I'd live for the live events.
It was
awesome.
That's exciting.
You know what's funny? My dad, at one point, now this is during the Attitude Era and stuff like that, so wrestling was kind of a little
edgy.
Yeah, edgy.
A little edgy.
My dad, because of my mom said, you cannot watch that. My dad would take VHS tapes, record it, and then whisper to me, hey, I got the new Nitro. And so my mom we'd be like, good night. And he would be like, come get me out of bed. And we would watch Nitro together and Raw, and I was so thankful. I was like, man, this is awesome. So I'm over there watching, I mean, and all that, the 80s stuff too. I watched that religiously.
Wow.
Even when I got older, I just would go through and watch all the old WCW, NWA, all that stuff. I
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I say all the time that the wrestling fans, I feel like, are the most loyal fans on the planet and the greatest fans on the planet, for real.
Do you think people have your tattoo somewhere? Have a tattoo?
Oh, I'm sure.
So quick story. So I did a book giveaway at a car dealership in Aiken, South Carolina, just a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And the owner runs in, he goes, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this story. And in walks about this 35-year-old blonde girl with her mom and her 2 children. And he said, hey, I want to introduce you to Nikita. I want to introduce you to Nikita. And here's but check this out. So, and I had met a few Nikitas in the past, but check this out. So mom begins to tell me the story. They're living in Florida. Dad's a huge Nikita fan, and she gives birth to her child, the daughter standing before me, 35 years prior. Wow. And they come in to get her to sign the birth certificate, and she looks, and the first name says Nikita, Nikita. She goes, that's not her name. They go, no, that's what your husband told us. And they go, that's not her name. They go, well, it's already made out. We just need you to sign it.
Oh, my goodness.
She goes, that is not her name. She goes, all right, fine. So she signs off on it. And so she was named after me. And they live in Aiken. And they go, we heard you're going to be here. We had to come and tell you that story.
Amazing.
And we had pictures together with her and her kids.
Great.
We did the pose with the tongue sticking out.
Right.
The whole deal.
Nice.
How crazy is that?
That
I've
is
had
so
9
cool.
kids named after me. For real.
And we just want to go online here to say these are not paternal suits somewhere.
Exactly.
These are unrelated children just named after him, just coincidentally.
Wow. Coincident. That's right.
No, no. I mean, that is what an incredible flattery. I would dare say that I don't have any. Well, maybe some of the people named David out there.
I'm sure, Dave.
I'm sure
me. It was me. I've been waiting to tell you this whole time.
I actually wanted a David Jr. My oldest was going to be David Jr.
Wow.
And we battled. My wife didn't want it. So I named every one of my kids' middle names are David.
That's awesome.
And if I swear, there was a contract. If I had a girl, her middle name was going to be David.
Or like DeVita or something like that.
What's that?
You could have done DeVita.
Oh, yeah. There's
something,
something similar.
Something close.
What do you miss about that lifestyle? Was it the accolades, the fancy meals? Was it, just being on the road? Was it the athleticism, the
fanfare? I do miss. So, because I get asked that question a lot, and Dang,
I thought I was.
No. It's a great question. Because obviously they think, you're in it, you're going to be in it for life. And in a sense, I am. I mean, that's never going away. It's a part of who I am. You know, the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff, the career is a part of who I am.
You got a Wikipedia page. My God, you're immortalized there.
I apparently so. So. And, you know, they're like, you know, do you wish you had stayed longer? You know, do you ever get the inkling to want, you know, because like some guys continue to come back, right?
Right.
You know, Goldberg, right? Comes back and they go, look, I think you're like the only guy that actually retired and stayed retired in wrestling. You know, and I go, yeah, for a reason. That was a goal of mine. So if I were to say, and because I'm still around it, but in the way of Legends autograph signings, card shows, some more regional, actual live action. And actually, I'm working with a team right now that I christened the Koloff Dynasty to carry on the legacy. I'm actually, so I'm around it a little bit, so I still get a taste of it.
Yes.
But more than anything, I'd summarize to say the camaraderie. We had a very unique group of guys back in that golden era. And, you know, got Ricky Steamboat and Dusty Rhodes and Lex Luger and Sting and, you know, and you could go on the Road Warriors, the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, Rick Rude. I mean, go on and on. We had a very unique group of guys and a very unique camaraderie among those guys. And so if I missed anything, it would be that.
And, you know, wow, that's so cool because I know in your life now you're kind of you champion Man Camp, you have a podcast, and, you know, you talk about it just kind of, I don't want to say it, manly stuff, but in a good way, you know, this non-misogynistic kind of like, you know, so you're kind of carrying that on. That's so cool because there's like a heartbeat in there. There
is. I mean, I feel certain, and again, for those who don't know the whole story, I mean, there's different ways to go on my website and buy the book. You want to hear the whole story, but the Reader's Digest version of that is, it was a very unique way I broke into wrestling, unlike anyone else's story. I walked away at age 33, unlike anyone else really in the business. I've kind of coined the Barry Sanders of pro wrestling for the football fan out there. You'll get that. Or the Wayne Gretzky of hockey. How about that? Yep. But anyway, and I wasn't living for the Lord back then. It wasn't until 11 months after I left wrestling that I found myself at an altar, surrendering my life to Jesus. Wow. And then it became crystal clear to me that wrestling's always going to be a part of who I am. But then it became a platform to draw fans and others into a church service or into a man camp. And then be able to minister to them and take all my years of experience. Lex Luger actually co-facilitates the man camp with me. And we give all of our years' experience back to them and hoping to equip them to be more godly men, godly husbands, godly fathers. Cool. And so, amazing. So that's how we're using it.
Give us the website. We'll put it in the details. We'll make sure we get all that stuff. We've never had a guest before. So, you know,
I got you. So for if you're 18 years or older and you're a male and you're 18 years or older, go to mancamp.info, just mancamp.info, and or go to koloff.net. You can actually go there and just link to it, koloff.net.
And we'll put all that information in here.
So link to the podcast and everything else.
Wherever you're from, you can go on and find out more about this incredible individual. And we get to hang out with him. That's so cool.
No, I get to hang out with you guys.
Oh, no, stop.
That's the honor.
We've turned down so many special guests.
That's right.
You know, I remember when Trump called us and he wanted to get on.
He's like, listen,
Obama was trying to get on. And we're like, listen, we want to make sure that it's the right person. Right. So to have as our very first special guest, Nikita Koloff, was just right for us.
It was right. You're right.
I do want to keep our promise. We try to keep these things informational. Yeah. Many moms around the country, dads too. Yep. They're homeschooling their kids by listening to the David.
They're getting their education right here.
Yeah, because this is how you get, and you could get, and if you get called out on a game show for like weird and unusual facts, but I've got one today. This one is a great one. These are just strange facts that you didn't know.
Okay.
Brought to us by people that know more stuff than what we do. Yeah. That's an official site. So here's one. According to research from Symantec, you remember the virus software? You're more likely to get more likely to get a computer virus on a religious site than a porn site.
What
do you think about that?
Well, I have no thoughts.
Well, Okay, so I have a thought.
Yeah, I'm just like,
No, I have a thought. So if I understood right, more a virus, and I'm not a real computer techie guy, but viruses disrupt.
Nor I imagine you're surfing porn sites, so you don't have experience.
Right. So yeah, I'm speaking from a certain perspective. I'm just giving you my thoughts.
Right.
So, but as far as like computers go, so viruses can screw up the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it could pretty much just mess up all your software.
Okay. Yeah. So on that note, it would make sense that somebody wants to screw up religious sites.
So you're talking a hacking situation. Okay.
Yeah. And
there you go.
And let the rest of the trash flow. So
Yes. That makes sense.
Without any disruption.
Sense.
It's like
There
infiltration.
you go. Hey, what if it's the porn sites actually doing the dissing of the religious site? Well, let me give you the numbers here.
Yeah.
It's the number of security threats on the average religious site was around 115, compared with adult content sites, which carried only 25.
Wow. That is wild.
But I think that's the thing. I think if we would have had Nikita Koloff here,
he would have been able to really give us the insight.
we wouldn't have known. We would have just been forever baffled. So kudos to you.
Think tank here.
And
That's right.
So what an incredible world we live in that you've got to be concerned about viruses and such like that. My God.
Of all kinds.
That can't be.
Yeah, of all kinds.
Viruses of all kinds.
Yes.
But hey,
Well, my computer just died, so the other side.
Oh, nice.
That's what I was doing over there. I was trying to give it CPR. Samwise just kind of like thumbed his nose at me.
He was like, "Oh, gosh.
Too bad you died."
Yeah.
But we have one strange and unusual fact. I think if I were to go back in time and pull up an episode. Mm-hmm. I loved our episode when we talked about things that rich people spend money on. That I think it's episode 19 in season 2. The reason I know that, I heard it the other day.
Oh, I was like, wow.
But
I don't remember that.
We talked about things that people spend a lot of money on that may appear overly kind of ostentatious. Is that a word to us? But guinea pig armor, $24,000.
This is a real thing. You buy armor for guinea pigs.
because do they battle?
That's what I'm wondering. I have no idea.
Is there like guinea pig wars?
Yeah, I had the same look. I was like, but
I'm
why?
going to simply reply and say some people just have too much money.
Exactly.
That's going to be my reply to that.
Well, I mean, let's think this thing through, though. Let's not be quick to judge. Let's
All
not cast the first stone. We're a forgiven and a forgetting bunch of Christians in this room. Maybe you had a horrible experience with your guinea pig.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe you love that thing. Maybe your mom gave it to you.
Okay.
And he's just walking. And then, you accidentally stepped on him or something.
Crushed the guinea pig.
And crushed him.
Yeah.
So it's a protection thing. You're
well, it could be.
leading to.
I mean, that could be. And then you're like, I don't care what it takes.
Right.
Even if I have to spend $24,000,
I'm going to protect this pig.
I'm going to protect this guy, and he's going to walk around completely protected.
That's wild.
Well, that's a thought.
Yeah. People have too much money.
You think so?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I think the other one that was cool, you can buy an exact, perfectly square ice cube, flawless, with absolute flawless clarity for $325. A perfect ice cube.
So stupid.
Really? Come on. What is going on? This is beautiful.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Now, first of all, Nikita, wouldn't you think kudos to the people inventing this stuff? I mean, they're working hard to serve an underserved market.
I would have to say it just goes to show that you can dupe people into spending money on anything.
Wow.
320. So what happens if it melts even a degree, then it loses its perfect shape?
And can you return it? That's my thing. Can you just return this like a?
I just got to put it on dry ice. Huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true.
You'd have to put the ice cube in dry ice and then return it.
See, I would return it in like one of those Ziploc bags and be like, "Give me my money back."
Yeah, it's got like a flaw.
Exactly.
Yeah, like hey, I found a flaw.
But then
like
it gets
diamond, right?
then it gets to me and it's water though. Like now I've got how am I
It's
going
not my fault. You sent me a cube of ice. Like, come on. I mean,
what happens if a guest comes over and grabs it by mistake?
dude.
Well, you know, and you go and you look, you go, "Where's my ice cube?"
yeah, they're like,
And they
"Oh,
go,
I'm sorry, I just had a glass of water."
He's got it like in his orange juice or something.
Yeah,
You're
right,
like,
yeah,
oh man,
right,
I was saving
exactly.
that. I had the Pope coming over. I was going to use it. With
Oh
him.
my gosh.
Did you see any of that kind of behavior in the lifestyle of the rich and famous of the wrestlers? I mean, was there just bizarre stuff? Like somebody had to have 9 lobsters delivered to their hotel room every night, or
Luger is Lex is a pretty good example of lifestyles of the rich and famous. I remember he told me at one point, so he was making so much money. This is after I retired, which by the way, when he heard I was retiring, his exact words I think were, "Is that guy an idiot or what? Like it's just getting ready to explode into millions of dollars, you know." So his average, he had whatever the American Express, platinum, double platinum, quadruple, whatever the top one was, right?
of the American Express.
Of the American Express, like wouldn't break, wouldn't, you know what?
I think it's titanium.
Titanium.
Okay.
I think it's black too.
Is it?
I think you're right. I think the black titanium or whatever, and his average monthly bill, 'cause, you know, you have to pay that off every month, right? Right? Was $50,000. His average monthly bill was $50,000, and he spent, and he was the guy who, like, when he had to have the next latest, greatest Mercedes, whatever, he never went to a showroom. He just made a phone call.
Wow.
They delivered the car to Sugarloaf in Atlanta, where he lived, in the driveway, simply picked up the keys from the one he had and exchanged cars in his driveway.
Wow.
With the
Nice.
paperwork all done, just had to, you know, put his John Hancock on the dotted line.
Wow.
So
That's crazy. I mean, like Ric Flair's robes too. Those things cost a pretty penny, right?
yeah, I mean, anywhere, I mean, you know, 5-10 grand, I mean, you know, maybe more, because they were all hand stitched.
Yeah.
All those little sequins you saw in Flair's robes were all all made by hand. So they're hand stitched. And somebody's telling me the other day, they flew with him sitting next to him on a plane. He had, you know, probably had his Gucci shoes and Armani suit. And yeah, Rick was a little, I said to him one time, I go, "Flair, I go, you waste more money on spilt liquor than some people make in an entire salary in a year." And he's like, "Woo! You know, that's gotta live up to the image, you know."
Wow.
Jet flying limousine ride.
Now, was there anything like, because he was an arch nemesis for you, and we're gonna excuse Dave. He's got an appointment to go, but
I do have to run.
And then I'm
Got
gonna
a final question before you.
Oh man, you don't get me started because we
I don't
need
want
an
to make you
episode
late for your appointment.
We need an episode of just of wrestling questions.
All right.
And we could be here for hours because we can start with like 85 and work our way up.
All
right. Nice.
That's why I do another podcast. So
really, I'm so glad that this was the premiere show with our guest. I'm going to finish it up. You go to your meeting and do all that stuff. I hope it comes all right for you.
Same, because I never know what I'm walking into.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks for your questions. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for being here.
When you were, was there certain things that were like untouchable? Like, hey, you're going to go into the ring, because Ric Flair was a nemesis. So you're facing this guy over and over. Was it like, whatever you do, don't touch the sequins on his robe, because this is like, he just had his teeth done, his hair, something like that. Was there ever any stuff like that, or not so much?
I mean, you know, certain guys could get a little quirky on things. There was a guy by the name of Black Bart, right? He had the kind of cowboy gimmick, and his hat. We'd have sometimes have a lot of fun in the backdrop, and you know, call it ribbon guys, right?
Yeah,
and he was a I mean, he was 100% cowboy. I mean, big old dip of chew, you know, his mouth.
So he was the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, you could hardly understand what he would say. You know, like, Bart, I can't understand what you're saying. The chew would be, the pinch would be so big. Anyway, but his cowboy hat, he was very meticulous about. And so cowboys, what I understood from him or learned from him was when you take your cowboy hat off, you don't set it down on the you turn it upside down. That's how you set.
I had heard that. I wasn't sure, but I had heard that.
To preserve the brim, the rim or whatever they call it. Anyway, and so guys would rib him. And I have to say and confess and say, I was at times one of those who, when he went to the ring and the hat came back and he was to the ring, like the ring guy, bring the stuff back, man, he was like, you make sure you set that hat right. So he did. But then invariably he'd come back from his match and his hat would be right side up. Man, he would get so mad. Wow. And he'd look around. We're like, Bart, I went in here. I don't know what
and it's especially something so easy to do. You know what I mean? It's almost like beckoning you to be mischievous in that thing.
It was, because he was such an easy target, to get him riled. And so there were little things like that we would maybe do or whatever. And then the other side of that though is, talking on the last show, or I don't remember this show. Anyway, we're talking about how some guys could be reckless in the ring. And so there were certain moves that guys did that personally I didn't allow because I valued my health. I valued my body. And so I made it known, hey, that particular move's not happening on the Russian Nightmare.
Yeah.
You save that for someone else.
Yeah. Because you're really making yourself extremely vulnerable, right?
You are, because, the word trust comes into mind. What people have to understand, if you're putting your body on the line, like take a pile driver, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, let's use that as an example. And some of your listeners might not know what a pile driver is. Go look it up in wrestling. Anyway,
basically dropped on your head.
Well, yeah, you're upside down. The guy's got your head between his legs, and he's pile drive. The idea is pile drive your head into the mat. Well, that's what it's supposed to look like, but not actually happen.
Yeah, is it snap your neck?
For example, Stone Cold Steve Austin had his neck broke twice from a pile driver, or at least the first time I remember for sure, by someone who didn't really honestly know what they were doing. So, there are a lot of dangerous moves. We tell people wrestling's not an exact science, so timing only has to be off a nanosecond. I
hadn't thought about that.
For something really serious to happen, a serious injury.
Now I do want to make sure, because we had an episode and a half on. I want to talk about like where you're at now. So, what an incredible thought to just come out of that and say, "Hey, I'm going to retire." You come to the Lord. And now, who is this man now? The Nikita Koloff. I mean, that's always going to be a part of you. But, now the Russian Nightmare becomes the Devil's Nightmare. What are the things that you're passionate, that really are driving you these days?
It's a great question. There's an illustration going through my mind as you're asking that question, because in the early part of my wrestling career, I was the commie Russian, right? I was the bad guy from Moscow.
What years would this have been?
84, 85, part of it.
A lot of Cold War, anti-Russian sentiment, huge.
The height of the Cold War. I mean, USA. It wasn't hard to get that chant going. I mean, people legit hated us. I mean, in fact, there were death threats to the wrestling office, Crockett Promotions. The Koloff show up in Charleston, we're killing them.
Wow.
Anyway, so I flip at the tail end of '86. Magnum TA has a wrestling, an automobile wreck. It breaks his neck. He's done. His career's over. And so I end up coming to the American Dream, Death Roll, the Tower of Power's aid in a cage in Charlotte one night, and I flip from one of the most hated guy in wrestling to becoming one of the fan favorites. And I did one interview. And they did one magazine cover with just my head on the cover with a tear coming down my cheek. And it said, I cry a tear for Magnum TA. And the fans the story got over so strong, Dave, that the fans go, oh my gosh, this guy, where I was kind of cold and heartless as the Russian villain.
Yes.
So like, this guy's got a heart, right?
Oh my Lord.
So
what a cool storyline.
The parallel of that. So here's the parallel. I'm not following Jesus for 34 years of my life. 11 months after wrestling, 17 October 1993, I give my life to Jesus. And the parallel is all of a sudden I went from, as the Bible describes, right, a heart of stone. And Ezekiel talks about him putting a heart of flesh in you, and his spirit in you.
Yeah.
And then since that time, there's been this process of tenderizing my heart. And from that moment, really a vision and a journey of sharing, not only sharing my story, but taking my story and the word of God around the world through evangelism, through crusades and revivals, now a podcast and a radio show, and just spreading the good news, utilizing wrestling as a platform many times, not all the time, but many times. So it's been an amazing journey.
I mean, it really is extraordinary, you know?
It's crazy.
Yeah. So
In a God way.
I feel the passion, by the way, when you're talking about it, because I think for me, like, is there a sense that, you know, the things that we go through before we know Christ, they're preparing us for a certain type of compassion?
Sure.
Like, I'm thinking of the scripture. Ding! Every once a month, we'll use a scripture on the podcast. We have a certain sound that comes out because we're waxing spiritual. So there it was.
Right.
There's our scripture. So it says of Jesus that we have a high priest that cannot be tempted.
At all points was tempted.
It was all points tempted, like
without sin.
Without sin.
Yet without sin.
We have therefore he's able to have compassion on us.
He understands.
He understands us. So, I mean, coming from that experience and then walking up to someone, you putting their arm around some guy that's struggling, and you saying, "Man, you can make it."
Well, and that's a great illustration for me, because so I give my life to the Lord 1993. In 2006, God really put men's ministry and men in general in my heart. Of course, you know, a lot of women too follow wrestling, but a lot of men follow wrestling. And back in the day, some would say I was a man's man. I mean, a lot of guys say I began weightlifting because of you. I got into wrestling because of you, or, you know, you were a role model, yada, yada. And so now to be viewed as, if you want to say, a man's man, you know, the Russian nightmare. But to your point of coming up to a guy, like we do these camps, Dave, these man camps. I have facilitated now somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60 of them.
Wow.
In fact, they did one up at Moravian Falls under the Morningstar banner.
Some of my friends went and said it was just extraordinary.
Yeah. Dave Hurst, he just told me recently that it was, to date, the most spiritually impacting thing of his journey so far. Was the camp he attended. Well,
it's a low bar because he hangs out with me a lot.
Well,
so I mean,
okay. So I was taking it as a real compliment. But you know, that said, so to be able to, you know, whether it's bring men to a camp or do you know, I've done some one day man up conferences here at Morningstar to just embrace a guy, as you said, put my arm around him and go, hey, I've been down a certain path or struggle with certain things that you're struggling with, and God has set me free. If I can do it, you can do it. Is a great place to be.
Yeah, and I think there really is an attack on, you know,
manhood.
On manhood.
On
really.
manhood.
Yeah, come on. And, you know, so, all right, I have 3 boys, father of 3 boys. They were all boy.
Yeah.
You know, hospital visits because we ended up breaking stuff and, you know, all that stuff. So 3
fell
boys.
out of a tree.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, in my life, you know, mixed martial arts, stuff like that, we were always wrestling and fighting. One of my kids is a fighter now. But to try to have someone make them feel guilty for the way God created them, or to try to impose some kind of a gender neutral feel. Now, I get it. I'm not going to, I want to equally champion women being everything that they can be. I mean, you know, absolutely.
I have 4 girls. Absolutely. So I get it.
So what is the thing? What, you know, why is that attack so prevalent in our culture and so needed to be resisted?
Well, because men by biblical definition, called by God to be protectors and providers and leaders of their home.
Yes.
Not in a dictator type of way or dictatorial way, but as servant leaders.
Yes.
Right? They model servanthood. They serve their wife. They serve their children, and they model that. So if you can emasculate them, then you lose that leadership in the home. Hence, we're in the muck we're in nowadays because of the lack of male leadership and the emasculation of men through movies, through television, through society in general, which is part of my mission. When my podcast is called it's the Man Up Podcast. It's time to man up. The conferences, the man camp, and it's just calling men into into their rightful place, a biblical position of what God calls us, how He calls us to walk in as leaders, servant leaders of our home. And if you can destroy the masculinity of a man, I'm convinced, then you can ultimately destroy the home. I mean, what's the statistic, Dave, that if a man comes to Christ, it's like 96% of his home come to Christ?
Really? I didn't know that.
That's it's
cool.
extremely high. Like if he comes first, if the man comes first to Christ in the home, it's like something crazy, like 96% of the family all come to Christ. If the wife comes to Christ first, the number kind of cuts in half. Don't quote me on these numbers specific, but it cuts in half. And if one of the children come to Christ first, it's like even less percentage of the family.
Interesting.
That actually comes to Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, just because really there's a lot of things sparking in my mind, but I think just kind of reclaiming that sense of, because I get it, there could be abuses that people are pointing out and saying, this is why we don't want this toxic masculinity. But you can do that with any subset of humanity. You could say, hey, I knew a guy from Puerto Rico and he was a really bad guy. So all people from Puerto Rico, it's just overgeneralization. It's prejudice. I get it. There probably were some toxic male figures, but
well, there have been. But
when we're looking at fatherless homes and the statistics that come staggering, is
go look at the number of go look at the statistics of number of men in prison. Hey, in fact, I heard something recently. I was reminded of this recently. Hallmark Card Company, and they go to the women's prison. They go to the men's prison, and it's Mother's Day. It's Mother's Day, so they bring tons and tons of Mother's Day cards, right?
Yes.
Well, they ran out. They didn't bring enough.
So the inmates were wanting to mail mom a card, and Hallmark gives them these free cards.
Yeah, gives them a free card. Okay, and then that's in the month of May, right? Well, 1 month later is what? Father's Day. So they're like, oh my gosh, we ran out of Mother's cards. We've got, let's make sure we have enough Father's Day cards.
Makes sense.
Like 4 prisoners got Father's Day cards. That's not an exaggerated number. Like 4 cards. 4.
Nobody wanted
to mail. Well, for one thing, half of them didn't know who their dad was, or where to even mail a card to. But when you look at the number of men in prison who again, either grew up fatherless and or abusive father, but many of them had no daddy, no male role model, no one leading their life. And that's the numbers are staggering.
What?
Is that not crazy?
Well, thank you for that quest. Honestly, thank you for that quest, because, I think we've got a mutual friend, Mike Godfrey, that does Team Focus.
Okay.
Where Mike grew up without a dad, and his whole life he's been championing, trying to get kids that are fatherless and connecting them. He's been in the football industry. He's a big sports. Was on ESPN and connecting them with these guys and the difference that makes. And like I said, in many of the conferences that I do, business conferences, we go out of our way to honor the ladies and honor what they're doing and making sure that it's not just either or kind of a thing. It's both and. Hey, man,
Right.
I want to get to the top of what God has for me as a male, and I want to see women really released from any stigma, bondage, any social aspects that have been oppressing them. And my God, because like for one thing, I mean, maybe they start to need to run this planet for a while. A lot of male-dominated leadership has run the car out of gas in many spots.
Well, or they've run us off into a ditch, right? Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Nikita, anything in closing that you want to say to our our numerous fans that are out there that listen to this podcast? We'll put all the information you can find. I mean, I get the privilege of being a friend with this guy, but anything you'd like to say to our fans?
Well, I just wanted a pleasure and a privilege to be on the show, and thank you for tuning in, dialing in, and I'm sure each and every week, these guys want to bring you some entertaining conversation, but today this is about a real entertainer, right? A wrestler.
Yes.
The very first ever guest for the second episode.
And it was, I tell you what, absolutely, you are our favorite guest by far.
That's because I'm the only one. What do you mean? Wait a minute. I'm the only guest. Yeah, I guess I'd be your favorite guest.
Please check out this man's information. We'll put it all in the link. And from Studio 8 here in Morningstar, come and check us out. Nikita Koloff is a part of our campus quite a bit. So if you come and see us, I always feel like I'm talking about a zoo or something, like you're going to walk past a cage. You can see him in his natural habitat. Don't feed him. Don't look him in the eye. Keep your hands away from the bars, but you can actually see him.
Hold on. Do we have time for one more quick story on that note?
Please.
So back to Kuwait again. So I wrestled in Kuwait for 10 days. It was, and with me was superstar Billy Graham. Now, not the evangelist Billy Graham.
Oh, I was going to say, I love Billy Graham.
the superstar Billy Graham. And this is a true story. We go out to a mall, and of course, I can't understand anything the Kuwaitis are saying. I mean, they speak an Arabic language. I don't know Arabic. But before you know it, I mean, and everyone knew we were in the country, and we had a massive crowd, and we go into this jewelry store. Now, there's like 20 jewelry stores in the mall and like 3 clothing stores. I mean, right? It's Kuwait, right?
Yeah.
Gold abounds.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so I kid you not, Dave, we're in the jewelry, and the next thing you know, we're like pressed, we're all the way in, but we're pressed up against the counter because that's how many people packed in just to see us. Like, it was like sardines. And so I'll never forget, Billy and I like inch our way around to make a 180 turn, and all we can see is a sea of Kuwaitis, and then outside the window, I honestly felt like I was like a gorilla in a zoo with everyone, because they're like out there looking, they're like, they're all sitting, we're like, what are they saying? And all of a sudden, Billy lost it. He like goes, "Get away from me." And man, they scattered like cockroaches when you turn the lights on.
Oh my gosh.
And they were gone. But the impression of this must be what a gorilla in a zoo feels like as we stand there staring at him.
Oh,
that
nice.
was the impression. Anyway, another story for the drive time.
No, nice. And I think we could arrange that here. We could have you like in your boxers eating lunch or something, and people can be outside.
Well, maybe my wrestling tights.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll put my wrestling tights on. I am part of the community here at Morningstar now. And I like to call myself an ambassador of Morningstar.
Oh,
so,
nice. Yeah. I think we just got a couple of sponsors that are paying us not to see you in your boxers, but in your wrestling tights.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so they're looking forward to that. So, but ladies and gentlemen, our tag phrase is "He who sits in the heavens laughs." I made a determination. I owned a hotel, bank, just different stuff all my life, and stress is a nonstop part of what's trying to get on you. And I made a determination. You're going to go through this life one way or another. You really are. You're going to get from point A to point B, and how you view things, what your attitude is really going to make all the difference. So we want to just absolutely lighten up. He that sits in the heavens laughs. God's got this in control. Now, we're not saying you shouldn't go on your Greek and Hebrew podcast to learn all kinds of cool stuff, but Tune in with us. You might be going from Paramus, New Jersey to LA, and you need 42 hours of just nonstop hilarity. Tune in to us. We'll do our best to educate you and entertain you. So from Studio 8 right here, a big, heartfelt Morningstar. Thanks for Nikita Koloff being here. Thanks again, my friend.
Tune in to DriveTime or the Russian Nightmare will be looking for you.
Nice. All right, we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, guys. David and Dave are David Vallier and Dave Yarnes of Morningstar Ministries. If you would like to know more about Morningstar Ministries, please visit their website at www.morningstarministries.org. Join us next time when we continue with the next edition of Drive Time with David and Dave. For David and Dave and their studio team at Morningstar Ministries, this is Chuck Christie saying thanks for lightening up with us. Psalm 2 verse 4 starts out, "For he who sits in the heavens laughs." Tune in again next time and laugh with us. Until then, remember to share, tweet, Insta, Snap, and look us up on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spreaker.com, iHeart, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and many other podcast portals. Make it a great week.